Hi guys, it's Professor Palumbo here. I want to talk to you today about Chapter 3 Hands-On. We're moving into Chapter 3 now, and things are going to start to get a little more interesting. We're going to be dealing with variables and constants, and we're also going to get into dealing with exceptions or errors that occur while you're running your project. So I would assume at this point you guys are getting pretty good at creating your forms. I don't think you'll have any problem. We have three input text boxes, one for the quantity, one for the title, one for the price. What this application does is we enter in a quantity and a price for a book, and it calculates the extended price, a 15% discount, and then the discounted price. And that is all done inside the calculate button. And then the clear button just clears out the numbers that are in the boxes, and the exit button, we know what that does. The print button we're not doing for now because of the fact that the print option is not available in this version of the software. So I'm assuming that you're going to be able to create your form with no problem. Let's go in and talk about the calculate button. So I'm going to double click on the calculate button. So when we're dealing with doing calculations, the first thing that we have to think about is defining variables that can hold the numbers that we're going to be dealing with. Let me just switch back to the form for a minute. Our user is going to be entering in a quantity. We don't care about the title because that's not going to be used in any calculations. But the user is going to enter a quantity, the user is going to enter a price, and we're going to take those two numbers and we're going to use them to determine the extended price. So quantity times price is the extended price. Then we're going to take that extended price. We have to store it in a variable, calculate a discount, which you're also going to store in a variable, subtract the discount from the extended price, and then end up with a discounted price. All of these things have to be stored in variables. So we need a variable for our quantity that the user will type in, a variable for our price that the user will type in, and then a variable for the three pieces of output, the extended price, the discount, and the discounted price. Every time you're working on a project, so let's say homework number 2, you're going to be creating a variable for every piece of input and every piece of output. So every number that you're going to need to do your calculations, and then every number or output that you're going to be providing back to the screen. You need variables for those. So again, let's go in and look at our code. So here we have a variable for the quantity, which is our input, a variable for the price, which is our input. Now you also have to figure out, should my variable be a whole number or should it be a decimal? If in this example we're buying books, and you can't buy half of a book, so the quantity is an integer. The price can have decimal positions, so we're defining that variable as a decimal variable. So it's up to you to determine what type of variable you're creating. We use the keyword dim, which is short for dimension, to declare a variable. We also have the three pieces of output: extended price, discount decimal, and discounted price. And all three of those variables are also decimals. Now notice that we defined all of these variables inside the calculate button. And the reason we're defining it inside the calculate button procedure is because these variables are only needed inside the calculate routine. Once we display the results back to the screen, we don't need these variables anymore. So these variables are only needed in here, so we're defining them in here, and that's the only place they're going to be available. So once we've got the user entered in their quantity and the user entered in their price, we're going to take the numbers that they entered in using the text box, so the quantity text box.text, we're going to parse it, which means we're going to convert it from text to a number. So when somebody enters something into a text box, even if they enter in a number, so when I type in my quantity and I type in my price, even though I'm entering in numbers, those numbers are treated as text. So we have to, in order to be able to use that in a calculation, we have to convert that text to a number. And that's what the parse function does. If we're converting to an integer number, we use integer.parse. If we're converting to a decimal, we use decimal.parse. So we take the quantity that the user typed into the text box, convert it using the parse function, and store that quantity in the variable that we defined up here, the quantity integer variable. So now we have our quantity captured. We then take the price that the user entered into the text box, parse it using the parse function, and place it into the variable called price decimal that we defined up here. We now have our two pieces of input. We're ready to do our calculations. So that's our next step. Let's calculate the numbers that we need to calculate. We need to take the price times the quantity and do that calculation and place the result inside this variable, the extended price decimal. Okay, then once we've got the extended price, now we're going to take that extended price and multiply it by our constant of discount rate. Let me just scroll up to the top and you can see that I defined a constant up here using the keyword CONST. We typically type our constants in uppercase so we know it's a constant. And then you must initialize your constant with a value. In this case, the discount rate is 15%, so it's 0.15. The D on the end just means decimal. So now we have our constant. We're going to multiply the extended price times the discount rate. We're using the round function to round that off to 2 decimal positions. And we're storing that discount amount in our discount decimal variable. So now we know the extended price, we now know the discount. We can subtract the discount from the extended price, and that gives us our discounted price. So let's say, for example, we typed in 2 for the quantity and 50 for the price of the book. Our extended price would be 100. Okay, then if we multiply by a 15% discount rate, that means we have a discount of $15, so that would be our discount. And then when we subtract the $15 from the 100, we have our discounted price, which would be 85. Now that we've got all the numbers that we want to display those numbers back to our form, back to the screen. In order to format those numbers, we convert them back to strings. Remember, these are numbers right now. So we use the toString function to take our numeric variables that we just calculated, convert them back to strings so that we can format them using, for example, in this case, this letter C means we want to format this as currency. So that means dollar signs, decimals, commas. So we're going to convert our extended price back to a string, format it as currency, and place it in the text box of the extended price text box. Or place it into the text property of the extended price text box. And that means it's going to be displayed in that text box. We do the same thing with our discount, except this time we're not formatting it as currency. We display it in the text box. Do the same thing with the discounted price, formatting it as currency, displaying the result back into the text box. So let's try an example of this. I'm going to run my project and I'm going to place my input in. I'm going to put 2 for my quantity and I'm going to put 50 for my price as soon as my application comes up here. It's running a little bit slow. Okay, here it comes. Here we go. So I'm going to put 2 in for my quantity, 50 in for my price. I'm not going to put a title because it's not that important. I'm going to hit my calculate button, and there we go. It calculated the extended price of $100. It calculated and formatted it and displayed it back as currency. It calculated my $15 discount, subtracted that from the 100 to give me my $85 discounted price, and also formatted that as currency. My clear button clears all my numbers out. My exit button exits the application. So that gives us a pretty good idea of what we have to do our calculations. Remember, one variable for each piece of input where we're going to store that, one variable for each piece of output that we need to display. We're going to take our input from the text boxes. If it's numbers, we have to convert those to numerics, place them in variables, do our calculations with those variables, and then display our results back to the screen by converting our variables back to string. So that should give you a pretty good start on Chapter 3 Hands-On. I'm going to do another video using Chapter 3 because this is just the beginning of Chapter 3 Hands-On. This is the code that's on pages 132 and 133. In my next video, I'll continue on and complete Chapter 3 Hands-On, which is on page 141. Okay, guys, I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.